Hi, my name is Hillary Skolton. I'm an attorney with the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center. Thank you again for being here. I'm grateful to our friend for bringing up immigrants in this discussion. For those of you that don't know, the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center is a statewide legal services organization, and we provide free legal services to immigrants across the state. And we deal with immigrants who are both victims of and accused of committing a crime. And in both of those roles, they feel a particular sense of vulnerability because they're immigrants. And for the chief and the prosecutor, I wondered if you would give us a response of what would you say to immigrants who feel this particular sense of vulnerability in our community. Courthouse arrests are on the rise. Obviously, Kent County has a relationship with ICE. Recently, the Grand Rapids City Commission excluded the Grand Rapids Police Department from the Don't Ask policy about immigration status. And in that, in particular, I'm wondering specifically if each of you would address your organization's policies on signing U visa certifications for victims of crime.
Sure. So, very timely question, and I'll start and then defer to the Prosecutor Becker. I guess a good place to start is with what you followed up with, your final questions. U visas are an opportunity for victims who are undocumented to make a police report, come forward without fear of deportation, and report themselves as a victim of a crime, or if they had material evidence or testimony regarding a violent felony. We're careful in terms of, you use the term immigrant. So we've got a large immigrant population here in Grand Rapids, a large immigrant population in West Michigan. I think it's important to recognize we've got documented immigrants and undocumented immigrants. And undocumented immigrants, unfortunately, are in a very precarious situation based on national dialogue and national events. The Grand Rapids Police Department role is to protect the residents of the city. We don't prioritize enforcing immigration status. That is an issue for our federal counterparts. It does make it difficult for us when federal counterparts are active in West Michigan or active in Grand Rapids. Then that's just the nature of law enforcement in terms of overlapping jurisdiction. ICE has the ability to come into our community and enforce federal regulations that pertain to immigration and immigration policy. That's nothing that the Grand Rapids Police Department can control. The message that I've been trying to send to our immigrant community is they have nothing to fear from the Grand Rapids Police Department. If they come home and their home's been broken into, if they come home and their child doesn't come home from school, or an elderly relative is missing, I don't want for a second that to not be comfortable to pick up the phone and call 911 and get the help they need at the time they need it. So it's important that they know what our role is and that we're here to serve.
Chris, let me ask you a question. When a person is an immigrant is charged with an offense that will knowingly result in their deportation, are your prosecutors instructed to take that into account? Because I've had them say to me, I'm not going to treat this person any different than I would a U.S. citizen, when a U.S. citizen may be facing 6 months of probation, where if they're convicted, they're going to be deported. It's a huge disparity result from the conviction. How are they instructed to handle it?
We take it on a case-by-case basis. I mean, we're mindful of that, but yeah, there is something to be said that we can't, give immigrants and somebody one plea deal and then, U.S. citizens treat them differently, essentially, because there are differences, but we have an obligation to try and treat everybody equally to some extent. Retail fraud. I just had one who was a Canadian citizen. But he was here and he committed a retail fraud, which is a deportation. I gave him a break. He committed another retail fraud, and give him another break. He's going to get deported for retail fraud. Yeah, that's a big difference from somebody, an American citizen who committed 2 retail frauds. But I can only control certain things. I would love, a full sort of immigration reform and take a look at it, because it's so confusing. I go back to, he's getting deported for retail fraud. Going back to a plea bargain, I had a homicide case where we had a lady from Bosnia who we wanted to flip to use against the co-defendant, and we called the Homeland Security, and they said they could, if she served 364 days, she pled to assault with intent to rob while armed, and she served 364 days, she could stay in the country. I'm going, well, how does that happen when somebody gets deported for retail fraud and domestic violence? But that was under the law. So the law, the federal laws, which is way beyond any of us on the panel's control, some make no sense. So, going back to your question, we're very mindful of that, and I am very mindful of that. I started a program where we send out 2 victim advocates to the Hispanic Center to give them a safe place because, like you talk about, the courts are not a safe place. They're afraid of what's going to go down there. They got to go through security. They see law enforcement. So we're sending 2 victim advocates out to this Hispanic Center to give them a safe place to talk and meet and just, try and work through whatever court process. Not necessarily don't have to have a case. If they just want to talk with their advocates, it gives them a place to do that. I sign U visas on a regular basis. I try and be very proactive, and I get one in, I review it. I get some like from 1999, then I'm like, okay, wait a second, I can't verify that I actually cooperated, but we do what we can to give the victims their voice. I don't know if it was your letter, but I signed off on an ACLU letter about ICE doing raids on courthouses. I'd probably get kicked out of the Republican Party for that, but I thought it was something that was important to do, and I said, yeah, I think that's right, because we shouldn't have ICE agents going to courthouses and making that place of fear. So it is a balancing act. I mean, it's something that we have to be mindful for everybody, but we try and do what we can to make it more as welcoming as we can.
Chris, when this issue arises, is there someone in your office that's been specifically tasked? Because I can tell you, your regular prosecutors on the line, they don't believe they have the discretion to be able to say, let's trade this, where this will not result in a deportation, where if we continue with this, it will.
They have the discretion, whether it's a case-by-case basis, and they have it just like any other plea bargain. I mean, it's any other plea bargain. They take the full circumstances into account, and so it's not just because, well, they're going to deport it, so we're going to change it. It depends on their prior record, depends on what the offense was, it depends on a whole host of issues, and they are empowered to do just what they would on any other plea bargain. That's one aspect to take into account, but it's not the only aspect.
Okay. Joe?